Okay, this Serena Williams debacle keeps running on, which is great. I'm loving it. Reason being is I hope she retires, because my personal view is I don't think she's been I mean, she's raised the game to be a little bit quicker and faster, but to be honest with you, she's really dominated. Um, Basically exactly the same as Michael Schumacher was in Formula One. And then it became really massively boring. The same thing is with tennis. She's just powered. I think many of the women in the game actually could probably beat her if she had to play longer, i.e. the same as the men. But it's always over 3 sets, always. And I think if they had at some points increased it to be the same as the men, there wouldn't be a problem from the point of view of because I think the men they're just quietly annoyed. They haven't said anything. They occasionally they do. They've had a meeting in the past. 100 of the top men players, met in a hotel. I think Novak is the head of the men's union or whatever it is, and they had to lock themselves away. They threw out the press. The press weren't allowed in, and they then had their meeting. And obviously, the money issue is what's brought up. Martina Navratilova or whatever complained at the time. She's saying they shouldn't be doing that. They should be bringing the women in as well, because this is all about it affects everybody, not just the men. She clearly did, she clearly didn't get the point, because she just said, obviously they're talking about pay, and they're going off about the fact that that they made the prize money the same as together. That was a done deal. It's been done. It's over 10 years ago. Why are they going back to it? They're going back to it because it wasn't fair. It's not fair that they made the game, men and women earn the same but the women are doing less work to get the money. It's as simple as that. And so it makes it's pure unadulterated hypocrisy. If men and women are supposed to be trying to equalize in this world to a degree, why isn't the prize money the same? It's logical. But the problem is when you've got someone like Serena Williams in there, a radical feminist. This is exactly what the feminist movement wants consistently. I've just seen a video of that horrible harpy Clementine Ford. She's a really nasty piece of work. Pure, horrible old Australian bitch. Really nasty piece of work. And that's what feminism is about. It's you at no point can you criticize feminism. You mustn't criticize it. It must be criticized at every single turn. It's a nasty terrorist organization, and it's not about equality between men and women. It's about a domination of a particular sect of elite women who want to dominate this world. So anyway, are women penalised more than men in tennis? Data or fines says no. So this was in the New York Times. As you can see, Mr. Ramos was arguing with Novak at Wimbledon in July. He was annoyed. He had his discussion with him. When it was done, it was finished. That this was September the 14th. Is this data reliable? It was brought forward by a man. So many evil feminists out there will not accept this information. Serena Williams argued that she was subject to a double standard when she was cited for verbal abuse by the chair umpire, Carlos Ramos, during the United States Open women's final last Saturday. She got fined 17 grand. The ITF, after 2 days, came out in support of their umpire. So clearly, and they're not backing down. They didn't back down. The ref didn't back down during the match. The ITF didn't came out in support of their man, their umpire. The USTA, the woman is still in the position. She's not going to lose her job. She was a disgrace to be. She should have been impartial. Clearly show you she's unprofessional. But this is the problem. We have poor standards of people in positions of power. Because they're black, and especially black women, they are, given these positions because, people are, for whatever reasons, are now scared of criticizing black women. This is the level at which we've come to. Criticize black men from here to eternity, but black women, it ain't going to happen. And if you do, you will see the wrath. There are men out here who do a lot worse than me. But because I'm a woman, there is the card. You are going to take this away from me. Unbelievable. You are going to take this away from me. So clearly, Serena Williams, she expected to win this match without any argument. Without any argument, but it wasn't going her way. Because this young girl was kicking her backside. She wasn't playing to the script. And she clearly states that you are going to take this away from me. Unbelievable. That is not right. Serena Williams was going for the 24th equally. She expected it to be given to her. That was it. She was expecting it to be handed over to her. She expected this young girl to roll over because she's Serena Williams. It didn't happen. This is the reason why I will be happy when she retires. I don't think she's good for the game. I don't think she's good for the game. Because it affects the men's as well. The men get embroiled in this nonsense. And there are people who don't tell the truth, but they just don't want to. They're too scared. Serena Williams tries to make out that she's powerless in this. She has bullied and forced her way into the structure and turn this sport about her. It's as simple as that. That's what this is about. There's a lot of people that like her, but unfortunately there are people that matter that like her, and that's it. There's nothing you can do about it. Each situation should be evaluated on its own merits. Everybody knows that. But the trouble is, when you see, the thing is, there are some idiots out there saying that she should have got a soft warning before about the coaching. I'm telling you this now. If this guy had given her a soft warning before he gave her the violation, or just gave her a soft warning, I'm telling you, she'd have still argued. she would have still argued and bitched, because she would have just said, we're not coaching, we're not coaching. Data fines. Here we go. Each situation should be evaluated on its own merits, but according to data compiled by officials at Grand Slam tournaments for the past 20 years, men are penalised more often for verbal abuse. So there are going to be people who do not accept this finding. Because what they will see, oh look, you see men get penalised more, to disprove Serena Williams' claims, which is what this is doing. It's disproved completely that she is talking nonsense and she's lying. She doesn't know what she's talking about. Fines by gender at Grand Slam tournaments. Data from the Grand Slam tournament show that from 1999 to 2018, men have been fined for misbehaviour more frequently than women, with one significant exception: coaching violations. Some of the disparity can be explained by the fact that men play more tennis at Grand Slam tournaments. So you can see all the fines. Let's just move this up. Let's just take it up there. So all the fines for the last 20 years, since 1998, racket abuse, men 646, women 99. Boom. I mean, it's more than double. I mean, that's literally 3-4 times more. Audible obscenity, 314 over 140. Double. Unsportsmanlike conduct, more than double, 287 to 16 women. Coaching, 87 men, 142, coming up to not quite double, but nearly, women. So it clearly shows that women take more coaching than men. They need the coaching. Ball abuse, 49 men, 35 women. Verbal abuse, 62 men, 16 women. Visible obscenity, 20 men, 11 women. No press. That's probably not going to the press conferences. Men 6, women 10 times. So they go. Women are less likely. The women are less likely to go to the or won't go to the press conferences. Time violations. Men double that of the women to 3. Best effort, men 0 for women. Default, 2 men, 0 women. Doubles attire, 2 men, 1 woman. Late for match, even, 1 and 1. First round retirement, 2 men, none women. So these figures obtained by the New York Times show that from 1998 to 2018, at the 4 Grand Slam events, men have been fined for misbehaviour with much more frequency than women, with the exception of coaching violations. So this is the reason, the point that. But you know what? All this proof that's being brought up and brought to show, it's gonna do nothing. Serena Williams is not going to get suspended. She should have been suspended. It was an absolute disgraceful display of total and unbelievable disrespect for a respected umpire. and it should have been as a sexist thing. She dealt with this, and she called him, or was stating that it was a sexist remark. No, it's the other way. You were sexist towards this man. You were discriminating against this minority in your country. This is a Portuguese guy in America. You were discriminating against him. Extraordinary. Fines are a result of investigation by tournament ref and the Grand Slam supervisor into code of conduct violations assessed by the chair umpire during the match. The figures from the Grand Slam tournaments are from all matches in qualifying, mid-draw, singles and doubles for a 20-year period, tens of thousands of matches. Men have been fined 646 times for racket abuse, that's smashing the racket, 287 times for unsportsmanlike efforts. Women have been fined 99 times for racket abuse and 67 times for unsportsmanlike conduct during that span. The disparities are similar for audible obscenity fines, 314 for men, 140 for the women. And most relevant to Williams' complaint, verbal abuse, 62. Sorry. Let's have a look. The disparities are similar for audio obscenity fines, 344 for the men, 140 for women, and and most relevant to Williams' complaint, verbal abuse, 62 for the men, 16 for the women. That's 3 times that of women. So clearly, Venus Williams has always talked rubbish that's emanated from her disgusting mouth. Williams was penalised for verbal abuse for calling Ramos a thief and a liar in the second round set of her 6-2, 6-4 loss to Naomi Osaka. The Grand Slam rulebook defines verbal abuse as a statement about an official that implies dishonesty or is derogatory, insulting, or otherwise abusive. Though she didn't swear at him, she did accuse him of dishonesty, which triggered the code of conduct violation and later a 10 grand fine for that offence. Some of the disparity between the men and the women's fines can be explained by the fact that men play more tennis at Grand Slam tournaments. They play best of 5 matches. Sorry, they play best of 5 matches in singles at all 4 majors, and also best of 5 in men's doubles at Wimbledon, while women play best of 3 sets matches in all instances. So they don't do any 5-setters in the women's. Billie Jean King, the persistent idiot, stated that the men's game needs to drop the 5 sets and make it to 3 sets in order to make it more interesting. What needs to happen is that Serena Williams needs to retire, and then the game might truly become more interesting because the players will be more even, and I think less. I believe they're certainly the women are afraid of Serena. I really do. Right. To take one example, at the 2018 Open, just gone, men played a total of 460 sets, or partial sets in the main draw in singles. Women played a total of 283 sets of partial sets in singles, which amounts to 61.5% of the man's weight. There are also simply more men. God, I don't know what it is. I'm really, really tired today. So there are also simply more men at Grand Slam tournament because in the qualifying event there are 128 spots in singles for men at the Australian Open, the French Open, and Wimbledon, and only 96 for women. But even accounting for these factors, men appear to be fined proportionally more often than women for a variety of offences. That does not apply to coaching, for which women have received 152 fines over the 20-year span, compared to 87 for men. The first of Williams' 3 code violations during the Open final was for illegal coaching. The coach acknowledged that he had used hand signals, although he was not certain that Williams had received them. In-match coaching is banned at all Grand Slam tournaments during main draw singles and double matches. It is unclear why women are, now listen to this, it is unclear why women are penalised more often for violating the rule. They are accustomed to receiving in-match coaching during regular tour events where coaches are allowed to come on court once per set with certain exceptions. This type of coaching has been allowed during WTA matches since the 2019 season, but coaching from the match stands remain illegal. That's it. The point is that this is the rule that they've implemented. It's up to the WTA or the ITF or whoever's the main governing body to look at the rules and see whether they should change it. Again, specifically for Serena Williams, because this is what it boils down to. It's about her, nobody else. About her. There was an appreciable increase in the number of fines for female players during coaching because it became legal on the because became legal on the WTA tour. It should be noted that not that all, but a handful of coaches in tennis are men. Right. I didn't quite. It should be noted that all but a handful of coaches in women's tennis are men. So does that mean that the vast majority of the coaches in the women's tour are men? Women received 65 fines for coaching from 1998 through to 2008 at Grand Slam tournaments. In the 9-year period since 2008, they received 87 fines for coaching, but in both periods the women's figure remained significantly higher than the men's. The men received 37 coaching fines from 1998 through to 2008, and 50 from 2019 through to 2009 through to 2018. So yeah, so now the thing I find quite interesting about it, there are people who have written a letter to the Times where they are not happy about it at all. So let me see if I can find that. They just don't agree with these figures, which is not surprising. Here we go. So let me just have a look. Letters to the sports editor. So here we go. Right. This was on the 21st, 2018, written by a woman, Laura Weinstein. Not a relation? Is it Weinstein? Anyway, not a sister, is it? Anyway, are women penalised more than men in tennis? Data says no. Now, here we go. There are problems with the data used in this article. It says here, it attempted to make an apples to apples comparison by laying out how many times men have been penalised and comparing these figures with the number of times that women have been penalised. Even taking into account the differences in number of sets played, which this article did, this comparison is not valid. Now, I don't know who this muppet is. Who cares? Girls and women are raised to be nice and polite. Yeah, what's wrong with that? But so are boys, to be gentlemen. And as a result, they are less likely to argue with chair umpires or abuse rackets or commit verbal obscenities, and more likely to be punished. And more likely to be punished for doing so. Okay. Researchers demonstrate that girls are punished more harshly than boys for misbehaving, even at very young ages. Nothing suggests that this gender problem does not persist into adulthood. Right. So what she's trying to say is that because women are brought up to be polite, not to and to be nice, which is a good thing, I don't see that it's bad, because clearly you see from the data the men are misbehaving, so they're getting penalised for their bad behaviour. Simple as that. But it says here researchers demonstrated that girls are punished more harshly than boys for misbehaving, even at very young ages, and nothing suggests that this gender problem does not persist into adulthood. That is just total rubbish. Utter rubbish. It doesn't. It's just not on. It doesn't make any sense. But you didn't bring this where we could go and see this research. Just talk nonsense. New York, not a surprise. There we go. Let's try and see the next. Here we go. Sorry, unfortunately, I've got a rubbishy laptop. So here we go. Another one. Another woman. Another Jewish woman. Rosenstein from California. So Miss Williams' comment about gender discrimination in this arena deserves further scrutiny, but I am concerned about how the data was reported. It is certainly possible. It says here, it is certainly possible, even though the information shows that men commit a higher number of violations, but are penalized for a smaller percentage of them. So what she's saying is that they do loads and loads and loads of violations, but so if there's 1,000 violations, they only get penalized for 50. Does it make any difference? Where men were doing, I think, 626 violations, are you saying that it's actually 1,000, but they're only being punished for 600? So what? They're still, the figures are still bloody high. Let's have a look. While women commit far fewer violations, but are more likely to be penalised. That's just bollocks. That's just fucking shit ass, complete bollocks. Are more likely to be penalised. While women commit far fewer violations, but are more likely to be penalised. Why can't just people accept the rule? This is the situation. Men are doing far more violations. You see it. It's there. The proof has been brought to you. It doesn't matter how it's got there. The evidence is there. Okay. Often the same abuse that goes unpunished in men. The only way to determine this would be to watch games and see how many instances of misbehaviour go unnoticed by the chair umpire. Williams was concerned about gender inequality in how penalties are assigned, and this report does not address her concerns. If researchers study this issue further, I would also recommend that they examine how penalties are assigned by race, as it has been shown in multiple studies that African Americans are more likely to be penalised for minor offences. Off the courts. What does that mean? I don't understand. That's just full bullshit. Don't understand. Don't understand that. We're talking about on the court. I mean, if you're saying after the match is finished, like Serena was fined, maybe that's what she's talking about. Here we go. Another letter to the sports editor. Fines are an extremely narrow view of the misfortunes of this tennis match. There was much more taking place at centre stage of all that went wrong in the match. How many times has a full match penalty been given in a Grand Slam finals match, let alone how many times for men versus women? Does it matter? There's always a first time for everything. And if that's the first time it's ever happened, that's the first time it's ever happened. I mean, in the 60s, the first time that man went to the moon. Over 100 years ago, it was the first time that someone actually built a plane that flew for a period of time. There's always a first time for something. There we go. That was if that's the case, this is the first time. So what? It doesn't make any difference whether it was man or woman. How many times has an umpire during a grandstand match, a finals match, not allowed the players to just play and not offered a coaching warning before a full code violation was given? Well, it doesn't matter. You're not the umpire. And he was clearly working within the rules. You see, what you're now trying to do, because the incident has happened, it's too late. You can't just suddenly come along saying that he should have given a soft warning. He gave the warning, which he was entitled to do. So he gave the penalties accordingly, correctly. Just because they don't follow your narrative that you want is irrelevant. He's the umpire. He owns, for that period of time, that court. He applies the rules. That's what he's paid for. That's why he's paid 450. I think it's just under 500. No, sorry. He's paid around $500 for that day, for being there for one day. $500 to get that kind of nonsense and abuse when he was doing his job and he applied the rules accordingly. But they weren't applied to people who are not trained, and these rules are applied and enforced by the World Tennis Association, the ITF, etc., etc. But you want to come along and tell them how they should, their umpires should apply the rules. Let alone how many times for men versus women. How many insults for men versus women have been thrown at an umpire? Well, the insults, when the men do it, they get fined. The data is there. I'm disappointed in the Times for not producing a full and robust representation of the statistics. Fines were the least of what transpired. What does all the data show? Elaine Griffiths, as usual. We've got one mangina decides to put his view. I think this article addressed the wrong question of whether women are penalised more than men. I think the more important question should be, do men get away with misbehaviour more often than women? Meaning, how often are men not penalised when being verbally abusive or conducting themselves in an unsportsmanlike manner in comparison to when women misbehave similarly? We've got the statistics, you dumb shit. It's shown you they're not getting away with it because it's 3 times that of women or double that of women. So they're not getting away with it. If that statistics were made available, well, then perhaps we could have clear understanding as to whether Williams' claims is justified. Talking utter and complete rubbish. Rubbish. The data is there. Okay, this is clearly what they're making out through these idiots who the letter to the editor are making out. It's sexism. So they're saying that even though they haven't brought a scrap of evidence, the Times has, they brought their statistics. Even though, here we go, we'll go back to see it. Even though they brought the evidence, and they got the data, they got all the figures. Let's have a look. I'm trying to find it again. No, clearly it's not. Yeah, it's still running through. We'll find it in a minute. Here we go. Here we go. Here's the data. Here's all the data. So men clearly, as you can see from here, are 3 times worse than women. Isn't that to be celebrated? Isn't it good that people are brought up nicely, to be calm, to not misbehave? So it clearly shows that many of the women that are playing there are brought up better, I believe, or were brought up better than Miss Williams, because the data shows racket abuse. Look at the racket, 646. This is what this says to me, or this nonsense that's coming out, is that we need to separate the game. If you're saying there's sexism in the sport, men and women need to move separately now. Let's forget the data, even though it shows that men get penalised more. Let's separate the sports. Women go and run their own. The WTA, Women's Tennis Association, run their sport how they feel fit. They'll only have women umpires. They'll only have girl ball boys. Every aspect of their game will be run only by women. The women who are cleaning the toilets, the women who are doing the bar service, the women who will do the grass. Completely and only women will be doing their circuits. And then the same will then apply to men. They'll either have their own circuits, or when the actual men and women are playing, there should be a period of time, maybe a week, so that the men will play first, and then a week there'll be a gap, and the women will then have their tournament after that, a week later. Then that way there will be no gender bias, because they're clearly saying there's gender bias. Simple as that. Get rid of the men umpiring the women's game. Get rid of the women umpiring the men's game. That's it. Finish. Then there won't be any problem. This is clearly a problem that it was a man who was, who was umpiring a woman's game. Shouldn't be allowed. That needs to now stop. So, that's what the story is. The women's game must not be umpired by the men, or at any point at all. The officials should all be female. The person sitting in the chair will be a female umpire. Everything will be run by women. That would be great. Would be fantastic. Because they're at a stage now. They've been running parallel altogether, the men and the women's game. Split it, because they're strong enough, fully strong enough. They don't need the men there. Their game will be much better organised, because people will come and see the women's game far more than the men's. I look forward to the day that they will split the game. I look forward to the day that the umpires, men will only administrate to the men, women will be administrated by women. That is the way to solve this problem. So I hope those of you who are listening to this, can you please pass it on? And we need more people, more men, to see these, these things that I'm saying, because what we're clearly seeing is an attack on men by feminists. I don't care whether they're a moderate, medium, feminist. Feminism is an evil, nasty ideology. There's a lady, a great lady by the name of, I think, Erin Prizzi. I can never pronounce her name. She's based here in the UK. She set up the first female women's shelter, which was it was developed really by accident. It was meant to set up as a sort of a coffee morning, but it developed into this women's shelter. She herself has said that the feminist movement is a terrorist organization. She absolutely hates feminists. She's an anti-feminist, especially the way that she was treated back in the early 70s, by the feminist movement. She absolutely loathes them. She cannot stand them. Absolutely, she really, really hates them. And she knows about them. In fact, she was chased out of the country. And for 15 years, she left the UK, and then Nolans took herself out of this country and went to, I think, different parts of the world, settled somewhere in America eventually, just to get away. But it's funny though, she went to America, the hotbed of feminism. I suppose it's a good idea because they wouldn't expect you to go there. But she had to run away from the UK to get away from those evil bastards, the feminist movement. So please, pass this on to everybody else. People need to see this and they need to hear it. The ITF and the World Tennis Association needs to be informed that in order to get rid of the so-called sexism in tennis, the game needs to split. Men and women need to have their own separate tournaments, run by women separately, run by men separately, separate umpires for each tournament. The male umpires for the men's game, women umpires for the women's game. Thanks for listening.